I was reviled across the internet, but I was the one with the least control. My choices in love, hate, and marriage were all dictated by the plot. If I dared to resist, the system would force me back in line with an accident. The system also used my daughter as leverage to punish me, but the one who truly pushed me to the brink was my wife. She dropped her mask and made an extreme choice that turned me into an unforgivable failure. In this game, she was the tragic heroine, and I was just the scapegoat who always took the blame. I was transmigrated into a tragic romance novel as the male lead, James. I had finally endured the entire plotline to its conclusion and was heading home when I overheard my daughter whispering in her room, "Mom, we finally don't have to pretend with Dad anymore." What shocked me even more was that Ava actually smiled gently and replied, "Then how about Mommy find you a new daddy, okay?" My daughter nodded enthusiastically, her eyes shining. Hearing that, I can't even describe how liberating it felt. I pushed the door open right then and there and said without a moment's hesitation, "I agree to a divorce. Why drag this out? The courthouse is about to close." I was standing outside the playroom, holding a cake. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear bits and pieces of their conversation. "Mommy, does this mean I won't get sick anymore?" my daughter in a sweet voice asked. "That's right." Ava's voice softened, a gentle tone she reserved only for Anna. "The plot is over, so there won't be any more deviations. You won't get sick from the punishments anymore." "What about Aunt Hannah?" Anna pressed urgently. "It's all Dad's fault that Aunt Hannah has to sneak around to visit. If it weren't for Dad, we wouldn't have to do all those things we hate, and you could be with Aunt Hannah out in the open. Mom, since the plot is finished, can you please divorce Dad?" My hand, gripping the cake box, ached from the pressure. In the gift bag was the limited edition Barbie princess I had spent a whole month hunting down for her. The playroom went quiet for a moment. It seemed like Ava was hesitating before she finally said softly, "Okay, I'll divorce your father. But today is your birthday, so I'll tell him in a few days." Anna's excited cheer slipped through the crack in the door, but it felt like a bucket of ice water being dumped over my head, chilling me to the bone. 8 years ago, to save my wife and daughter from a fatal car crash, I agreed to the system's terms and was thrown into the plot of this tragic novel. I had to follow the entire plot line perfectly. The slightest deviation would trigger a punishment from a system. A minor punishment was a severe illness. A major one was a fatal accident, resulting in my complete erasure from this world. But as long as the plot moved forward smoothly, I earned reward points. Those points could be used little by little to awaken my wife and child back in my original world. I was not a model host. I met Ava when I was 19. Back then, my life was a mess, and I was just drifting through it aimlessly. At 22, we got married, and soon after, Anna was born. Just when I thought the plot was finally nearing its end, Ava's attitude toward me soured. We were constantly fighting. At the same time, I started getting sick more and more often. Sometimes it was so bad my vision would go black and my ears would ring until I couldn't see or hear anything. Anna was my biological daughter, so she was also subject to the system's punishments, forced to bear a tenth of my suffering. She would cry all night, her little body growing thinner by the day. I risked failing the mission and told Ava everything about the system. I explained that if she intentionally deviated from the plot again, I would die, and the system would take Anna away too. Only when the story was completely finished could we ever hope to be truly free. At that point, there were still 5 years left until the plot's conclusion. After our talk, Ava stopped blowing up over petty things. But whenever we did argue, both Anna and I would get sick. I felt so guilty about what I was putting my daughter through. But Anna always ate her meals and took her medicine on time, never throwing a tantrum or trying to skip it. As the days passed, filled with sickness and punishment, she and I actually grew closer. A few days ago, the system finally informed me that the plot line was complete. The first thing I did was tell Ava the good news. From now on, we would no longer be puppets of the system. We could finally live our lives on our own terms. I also got my choice back. I could either leave this world and return to my original life, or I could stay here. Selfishly, I couldn't bear the thought of leaving Anna all alone. I decided I would stay, at least until she was an adult. But reality hit me like a ton of bricks. I spun around, tossed the cake and the gift into the nearest trash can, and then stormed into the room. I agreed to a divorce, I announced. I looked straight at Anna and said slowly, "So, Anna, you wanted to trade me for a new dad all along. It must have been so hard for you and your mother, living with me all these years." Anna's face turned bright red. It was a mixture of guilt and the angry embarrassment of being caught in a lie. She was never good at hiding her feelings. She just tilted her chin up stubbornly and yelled, "You were eavesdropping. You're a bad daddy, and I don't like you because you're mean." Even though I had braced myself, hearing the words, "I don't like you," from the daughter I had doted on sent a wave of emotion crashing over me, and I lost control. Ava was visibly taken aback, but didn't stop Anna. She just took a quiet moment to compose herself, then gave a slight nod. "Fine. It was wrong for Anna and me to lie to you all these years. Let's get a divorce. It will make it easier for me to marry Ethan." Anna huffed and chimed in loudly. "Me too. Uncle Ethan is so nice, and you just drove him away for no reason. I don't want a dad like you." I felt completely empty inside. A few years ago, Ethan had tried to harm Anna on several occasions. Even if the plot hadn't demanded his departure, I would have found a way to get rid of him for Anna's sake. I thought I had succeeded, but now I see that I was the one who was being kept in the dark the entire time. A piercing alarm blared in my mind. Warning: plot deviation detected at final node. Major character arc inconsistent. Host must correct plot within 7 days, or current timeline will be forcibly terminated. My head felt like it was splitting open. I held on, mentally screaming at the system. "What's happening?" I called out to it, desperate. "My apologies, host," the system's cold, mechanical voice echoed. "It appears we have both been deceived. Plot monitoring is conducted from the host perspective. This is the first time a character has successfully bypassed the system's detection." However, the voice continued, "Given that the system also failed to detect this character's anomalous behavior, I will assume partial responsibility. Even if the plot is not restored within 7 days, your points will be awarded as scheduled." I felt a small weight lift off my chest. When I came to, Ava and Anna were watching me nervously. They knew that whenever I zoned out like that, I was communicating with the system. "What is it now? Isn't the plot over?" Ava's voice was laced with anxiety. "It's not going to punish Anna and Ethan, is it?" Anna covered her mouth, her big eyes darting around nervously. I take back what I just said. I was silent for a long moment, watching them. Neither of them seemed the least bit concerned about me. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "No," I said, a self-deprecating smile on my face. "It won't. And Anna, happy birthday. Your gift this year is exactly what you wanted. Freedom." I decided right then to abandon any attempt at fixing the plot. I would just wait out the 7 days and let the system remove me from this world when the repair inevitably failed. Ava truly couldn't wait another second. She didn't even bother with the 30-day waiting period, opting instead to file for a contested divorce to speed things up. As she received the divorce decree and turned to leave, I couldn't stop myself from asking Anna, "Anna, if you never saw me again, would you be sad?" Anna was playing house with her doll. Without looking up from pouring imaginary tea, she said, "There you go again. You used that same line to get rid of Uncle Ethan and force Mom to stay with you. Are you trying to pull that on me now?" I froze. It was true. I had told them that if the plot deviated too much, I would die. But I never told them that if the plot collapsed, the entire world would disappear along with it. That was the whole point. The host and the characters were supposed to be in the same boat, working together to survive. But I was afraid of scaring Ava and Anna, so I never told them the full truth. I spoke slowly. "Anna, I won't say those things again. But this time, I really am going to leave this world." "You're so annoying," Anna screamed, grabbing her miniature tea set and hurling it at me, her face red with frustration and anger. "Then just disappear. Go on, get out of here." A teacup flew past my face, just missing my eye. A tangled mess of emotions, sour and bitter, welled up inside me. I felt dizzy, my legs grew weak, and my vision started to blur. The plot had deviated again. I took a deep breath. I reached out to stroke Anna's hair, but she flinched away from my touch, moving to another corner of the room to play with her doll. I sighed. You're right. You have Uncle Ethan to keep you company. I was just a spare part anyway. I walked out of the house and stood by the curb to wait for a ride. A moment later, a sports car came roaring down the street and screeched to a halt right next to me. The window rolled down to reveal a handsome, arrogant face. It was Ethan, Ava's unforgettable first love. According to the plot, my job as the backup, male lead was to completely erase him from the picture and make Ava fall in love with the real me. Clearly, I had failed. In the end, I was the one they had played for a fool. James, long time no see, Ethan said with a triumphant smirk. He produced a small ring box from his pocket and snapped it open, revealing a heart-shaped pink diamond. Unlike you, I'm not too cheap to buy Ava a diamond ring. She and I picked this one out together. We're getting married the day after tomorrow. You should be there. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw that diamond. When Ava and I got married, the plot had required me to buy her a heart-shaped pink diamond ring, too. But Ava had insisted, no matter how much they sparkle, diamonds are just illusions. They're flashy and empty, all show and no substance. I had wanted to talk her out of it, feeling like we shouldn't have any regrets on our wedding day. But she just shook her head and pouted. A tacky diamond like that isn't worthy of me. I don't want it. If you absolutely have to buy something, just get a simple gold band. I thought it was a minor detail, so I went against the plot's directive. The very next day, the plot punished me. I missed a step and fell down a flight of stairs, leaving me bedridden for 3 months. At the time, I couldn't understand why such a minor, descriptive deviation would warrant such a severe punishment. Now I get it. That pink diamond was a key prop for the story. The issue was never about whether the diamond was worthy of Ava. It was about whether I was worthy of giving it to her. Congratulations, I said, my face a mask. A flash of white light burst in front of my eyes, and that familiar, sickening feeling of weightlessness washed over me again. At this rate, I wouldn't even make it 7 days. The system would probably kick me out of this world long before that. Ava told me you're back to your old tricks, Ethan sneered, muttering about disappearing again. The plot is over, he scoffed. Don't you think it's a little pathetic to still be using that line to scare people? I ignored him. The plot's deviation was already irreversible. This world was on the verge of collapse. 6 days left. I didn't bother renewing the lease on my apartment. I just checked into a nice hotel, planning to do nothing but lie there and wait for the plot to completely fall apart. Plot monitoring is conducted primarily from the host's perspective. The system's cold voice chimed in my head. I glanced at the TV, where a news channel was running a countdown to Ava's wedding, and grunted in acknowledgement. I turned off the TV and scrolled through my phone. It was flooded with sweet pictures of the two of them on every celebrity news site. How in love do you have to be to want the entire world to see it? Because monitoring is host-centric, the host must personally witness the wedding of Ava and Ethan. The system's voice continued, explaining that this was the only way to accurately assess the degree of plot deviation. I blinked and sat bolt upright. No wonder I hadn't felt that disorienting weightlessness all day. Don't you think you're a little buggy? I asked, exasperated. The system was silent for a few seconds. This system will submit a request for an upgrade. However, were it not for this bug, IT is unlikely the host would have survived to the plot's conclusion. I was so taken aback by the system's deadpan compliment that I didn't know how to respond. Host, please proceed to witness the plot deviation. The mechanical voice sounded almost awkward. IT will not be long now. You will be able to leave this world soon. 5 days left. I put on a clean white shirt and went to Ava's wedding. It was on a white sand beach. The sky was clear, the clouds were wisps, and a gentle breeze was blowing. The whole place was a sea of flowers, with an aisle of pink petals leading to the altar. The system, probably sensing my discomfort, helpfully suggested, host may employ a mask and sunglasses for disguise. I smiled and declined. I found a seat for myself near the front and sat down to wait for the ceremony to start. From that angle, I had a perfect view of every expression on Ava's and Ethan's faces. Host, in truth, you The system was being unusually chatty today. I shook my head. Don't worry about me. They clearly don't care that I'm here, and that actually makes things easier. Of course I'm sad, but more than that, I'm looking forward to getting back to my real life. As I thought about it, I picked up a napkin from the table, folded it a few times into the shape of a small bear, and held it up for the system to see. See this? Whenever my son throws a tantrum, I explained, I fold one of these little bears to make him laugh. I'm glad I haven't forgotten how. I was holding the little bear, admiring my handiwork, when a soft, familiar voice spoke up from behind me. Daddy, what are you doing here? I turned to see Anna. She was dressed in a little flower girl dress, carrying a basket. Nestled inside was a pink ring box. My first instinct was to reach out and pull her into a hug, but I stopped myself just before my hands reached her. Anna looked at me defensively, clutching her basket. You're not here to ruin Mommy's wedding, are you? She asked bluntly. Are you going to try to make Uncle Ethan leave again? People nearby started to turn and stare. I just smiled. Anna, you've got it all wrong. Your Uncle Ethan is the one who invited me. Anna paused, clearly not expecting that answer, and her little hands nervously twisted the fabric of her dress. Her eyes landed on a napkin bear in my hand. Daddy, what's that? She asked, reaching for it. I gently moved her hand away. Anna, this isn't for you. You can't just take it. Her eyes widened. She set her basket on the ground and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Daddy, I want it. A moment later, someone called my name. I turned and saw Ava, standing a few feet away in her white wedding dress. She must have walked up behind us. She gave me a cold smile. It's useless, James. Trying to win Anna over with cheap tricks like this won't work. I looked at her, my own voice turning cold. You're mistaken. I made this for my son. Ava froze for a second before her cold composure returned. James, have you lost your mind? First, it was the whole I'm going to disappear act, and now you've invented a son. What's next? Are you going to tell me you have another wife somewhere, too? If I go through with marrying Ethan, are you just going to poof out of existence and go live with your imaginary family? She said it like she was listening to the most ridiculous joke in the world. You're disgusting, James, she said coldly. Lying to me is one thing, but now you're lying to a child. Don't worry, you're not going anywhere. You're going to spend the rest of your life watching me, Ethan, and Anna live happily ever after. I didn't answer, just sat back down. She grabbed Anna's hand, picked up the basket, and shot me one last glare before hurrying away. The murmurs from the other guests grew louder, but I tuned them out, focusing inward and waiting for the ceremony to begin. Ethan appeared in a sharp tuxedo. When he saw me, a corner of his mouth lifted in a smug smile before he turned to look at Ava with a gaze so tender it was practically melting. As the romantic music swelled, Ethan dropped to one knee, placed the ring on her finger, and kissed his new bride. The alarm in my head was deafening, threatening to split my skull open. That feeling of weightlessness dragged me down into an abyss, making it hard to breathe. I could feel my internal organs shutting down, shriveling at an alarming rate. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay conscious, my eyes glued to the altar. Anna skipped up the steps, basket in hand, and called out sweetly, "Daddy Ethan," before leaping into his arms. Ava gently scolded her for being rude, but Ethan just smiled indulgently, pulling her into a hug and calling her his daughter. Warning, warning, plot collapse imminent. Host must initiate repairs immediately. Failure to comply will result in forced ejection from the current world. I ignored the system's blaring warnings, leaning against the table with my head in my hand, studying Ava's face. She had always been so reserved. Even when we were supposedly at our happiest, I had never seen the kind of pure joy and anticipation on her face that I saw now. I didn't get it. But then, human emotion is the hardest thing in the world to understand. That's why the system needs actual living people to navigate these plots. Plot deviation approaching maximum tolerance. The system chimed in. Deviation level is higher than projected. One more significant shock may trigger immediate host elimination. I managed a weak grunt in reply. Host, my point is this, the system clarified. If there is anything you wish to say or do, You are running out of time. You may not get another chance. I looked at the smiles on Ava's and Anna's faces, and the last vestiges of resentment and attachment in my heart began to fade. There's nothing left to say or do. When it's time, just take me away. The ceremony had reached its emotional peak. Ethan took the ring box from the basket and opened it. It was empty. His expression hardened, and he raised a hand to cut the music. The ring is missing. Instantly, every eye in the place turned to me. Their suspicion felt like 1,000 tiny needles. Anna was the first to speak, her small voice carrying clearly across the venue. I just took the basket over to see Daddy. Ava bit her lip, her knuckles white as she gripped her dress. James, you took it, didn't you? She seethed. Give the ring back. But Ethan just shook his head, putting on a show of reluctance. I'm sure James is just playing a little joke on us. The truth was, I didn't even have the strength to stand up and defend myself. My silence only fueled Ava's rage. I knew it. You're lying to me again. Ava stormed over and grabbed my arm. Coming here was just a pretense. All you wanted was to ruin my wedding to Ethan. You make me sick, James. I summoned the last of my strength, but all I could manage was the faintest hint of a smile. Anna ran over too, kicking and punching me with her little arms and legs. It didn't hurt, but she was eating my clothes filthy. Bad Daddy, you're ruining everything again. All you do is hurt people and break things. I don't want you anymore. Just disappear. As Anna's shrill scream echoed, the world suddenly froze. The pain, the weightlessness, even the ache in my heart, it all vanished in an instant. The entire scene was frozen, as if someone had hit pause. Everyone was locked in place. Warning, plot has collapsed. Host James will be forcibly ejected from the current world in 5 seconds. The cold, monotonous voice echoed in my head. I watched quietly as my soul began to separate from my body. 5. Ava's hand was clamped on my arm, her nails digging so deep into my skin that if time were still moving, I'd be crying out in pain. I saw it then. The pink diamond. He'd had it on him the whole time. 2. With nothing else to do, I let my gaze wander around the frozen scene. Most of the guests were looking at me with open contempt. I'd spent half my life here, married a woman who didn't love me, and raised a daughter who didn't care about me, only to end up like this. A complete and utter failure. I sighed. I really had done my best. I closed my eyes, opened them, closed them again, opened them again. What's happening? I managed to say through gritted teeth. I quickly realized I was trapped in this world, stuck as some kind of wandering spirit. Host, one moment, the system's voice boomed in my head. Another bug has been detected. The plot collapsed faster than anticipated, for days ahead of schedule. The exit portal is not fully operational. Don't tell me I have to get back in that body, I muttered. Negative, the system replied, sounding unusually competent. You will remain in a non-corporeal state for a maximum of 1 additional day. Temporary freedom of movement has been granted. I was speechless. Oh, thanks, system. You are welcome, host. Its voice faded out. Please remember to leave a 5-star rating. My vision swam, and when I blinked, I was floating in midair. The frozen scene snapped back to life. The venue was filled with noise again. Ava's impatience, Anna's screaming, Ethan's smug satisfaction. Ava stared coldly at my body. Say something, but without a soul, my body just slumped limply against the back of the chair. She pinched my arm hard, obviously thinking I was faking it, and tried to force me to wake up. Stop pretending, James. What is it you want? Please just stop torturing me and Anna. Anna stopped her kicking. She didn't understand the complicated games adults played, but she seemed to sense that my unnatural stillness was wrong. When I didn't react, she reached out and poked my leg. It was a little secret between us. Whenever I was just going through the motions of playing house with her and would pretend to be asleep, she would poke my leg just like that. It always worked. I could never keep up the act and would have to open my eyes and keep playing. But this time, no matter how many times she poked, my body remained still, eyes shut. No, that's not right. Anna started to panic, tugging on Ava's skirt. Mommy, Daddies, I'm tired of this. It's because I'm so stupid. Ava suddenly shrieked, her voice cracking. Because I'm so easy to fool. That's why he thinks he can keep lying to me, even now. You love putting on a show, James. So go on. Keep it up. I don't care one bit. She gave my body a hard shove. She clearly thought I was just pretending to pass out. She expected my body's survival instincts to kick in, that I would catch myself before I fell, and then she could expose my little act to everyone. But that body was an empty shell. It fell without any resistance, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. The back of its head hit the floor, bounced up an inch, and slammed down again. It was a pathetic sight. Even I felt a flicker of pity for myself. It was not a dignified exit. Screams erupted from the crowd. Someone yelled, "Call 911." Another person added, "And the police." Others had already pulled out their phones, eagerly recording the chaos. Through it all, Ava's expression remained a cold, hard mask. Even when a terrified Anna threw herself onto my body, sobbing and screaming, "Daddy," she didn't flinch. Even when Ethan rushed down from the altar to check for a pulse, her face was a blank slate. It didn't change until someone yelled, "He's not breathing. Does anyone know CPR?" She didn't even bother to look down. The paramedics arrived and loaded my body onto a stretcher along with Anna, who was now sobbing uncontrollably. Ava just stood there, frozen. A paramedic leaned out of the ambulance. "Is family coming?" When no one responded, they closed the doors and drove away. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I follow the ambulance or stay here? Ava just stood there, cold and still as a statue, seemingly oblivious to everything happening around her, as if she were trapped in a dream. No one approached her, not even Ethan. The crowd slowly began to disperse. Only then did Ava seem to snap out of it, like someone surfacing from deep water. I floated in front of her, studying her face. It was the same beautiful, delicate face I'd known for 8 years. But now, there was a deep, unshakable sadness in her eyes. What was she so conflicted about? The marriage itself, probably. I was only ever meant to be a stand-in, but through a twist of fate, I had become her actual husband. In the beginning, I had worked so hard to win her over, engineering countless coincidental meetings, planning romantic gestures, naively wearing my heart on my sleeve. She would always just watch me with that faint, knowing smile, as if she could see right through me. But she still agreed to go out with me. We played out every scene the plot required, one after another. At some point, I even started to believe I was actually melting the ice around her heart. But the moment Ethan reappeared, she started pulling away. And after I told her about the system, it was like a wall went up between us overnight. I tried everything to tear that wall down, but she just kept building it back up. Eventually, even Anna began to question how I felt about them. This outcome was probably what the two of them had wanted all along. Anna was still little. She was just scared of the process of loss. Ethan could buy her a few new toys, and she'd be happy again in no time. But Ava, why didn't she look happy? I floated closer to her face. Her eyelashes were cast down, and I could see a single, glistening tear clinging to the tips. Her lips trembled, caught somewhere between a smile and a sob. After a long silence, she whispered, "James, is it real this time?" "It can't be. You're lying to me again, aren't you?" Her voice shifted. She snapped her head up, grabbed her car keys, and ran. By the time she got to the hospital, the doctors had just declared me brain dead. No further resuscitation would be attempted. Anna was awake, crying in ragged gasps, repeating over and over, "I don't want Daddy to leave. Don't let him disappear." The nurses tried to comfort her, but they overheard her brokenly confess that she had been kicking me and screaming for me to disappear right before I collapsed. The looks on their faces changed, and none of them stepped forward to hold her. "Mommy." The second Anna saw Ava, she threw herself at her like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. "They stopped trying to save Daddy," she sobbed, gasping for air. "They said he's gone. It's because we weren't good, isn't it? That's why Daddy died." Ava's eyes instantly reddened. "What?" she whispered in disbelief. Ignoring the nurses, she bolted into the trauma room. My body was lying on the cold operating table. The doctor just shook his head. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Ava clearly couldn't accept it. She grabbed the doctor's arm. "That's impossible. He has the system. He can't just die like that. The doctor gave her a strange look and asked, as patiently as he could, "What system?" Ava stared blankly. "The system. As long as I still love him, he can't die." The doctor's expression grew even more concerned, and he took a few steps back. "And do you love him?" Ava looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I." The doctor used the moment to pull his arm free and backed away even further. "Ma'am, are you his next of kin? He has been pronounced dead. You should probably start making the final arrangements." Ava stared at him, incredulous. "No, you don't understand. The system. Don't you get it? Unless..." The doctor was clearly losing his patience. The paramedics had filled him in on the general situation, and seeing Ava's state now just made his head ache. "First, I have no idea what this system is you keep talking about. Second, from what I understand, the patient's time of death coincides exactly with when you were getting married to another man." With that, the doctor turned and left quickly. Ava stared at my body, looking completely lost. After a long moment, she let out a bitter, sarcastic laugh. "Okay, James, I admit it. You scare me this time. You win. I won't marry Ethan. Is that what you wanted to hear? You can wake up now." She walked over to my body and poked its cheek. "System, I know you can hear me. Give it back. Anna can't lose her father." But there was no answer. Ava kept talking to herself, lost in her own world, refusing to believe I was really gone. I drifted aimlessly out of the room. Anna was curled up in a chair in the hallway, hugging her knees and sobbing. Ethan, now in street clothes, had arrived and was sitting beside her, gently trying to comfort her. "Uncle Ethan." Anna looked up at him, then buried her face in his chest and cried even harder. "Daddy's gone. What am I going to do?" Ethan's expression was hard to read. He patted her back gently. "Don't be scared. I'm here." Anna looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Uncle Ethan, I was just thinking. Daddy never even touched the basket. You were the one who told me to take it to him. It's not his fault the ring was gone." Ethan stiffened, his eyes darting away. "Of course. I'm sure your dad was innocent." But Anna wasn't finished. "But he died because of Mommy and because of me." I watched her, my heart aching. She was so much more sensitive than Ava, so easily swayed by her emotions. Too young and too easy to manipulate. "Anna, what are you talking about?" Ethan forced a smile. "Your father had a sudden heart attack, that's all." "No," Anna said, staring at him intently. "He died because of me and Mommy and you, Uncle Ethan. We all did it." The smile vanished from Ethan's face. The few people lingering in the hallway started to stare. "Anna, keep your voice down," Ethan said, his own voice rising to talk over her. "Your father insisted on coming to the wedding. He couldn't handle the stress and had a heart attack. How is that my fault?" Anna never responded well to pressure. She shoved Ethan away, jumped down from her chair, and shrieked, "Uncle Ethan told me to make Daddy mad. That's why he died. Uncle Ethan and Mommy and me, we all knew. We knew if we left him, he would die." A child's voice carries. The onlookers who had been pretending to be absorbed in their phones all looked up, their eyes wide with shock. Ethan lunged to cover Anna's mouth, but it was too late. "We killed him," Anna wailed. "Daddy's dead." Ethan cursed under his breath. He had warned Ava not to tell Anna about the system. A child that emotionally volatile could never be trusted to keep a secret from it. But Ava had insisted Anna was mature enough. Besides, she'd argued, a lie's always more believable when it comes from a child. Ethan had finally agreed. Later, he'd even come to like the idea. After all, what could be more devastating to James than being betrayed by his own daughter? What could be more crushing than having your own beloved daughter turn against you? Ethan had found the whole situation quite amusing. He just hadn't expected James to die so suddenly, and at his wedding, of all places. But on second thought, it was for the best. At least now, he wouldn't have to worry about James or some stupid system anymore. He just needed to get Anna under control. If he played his cards right, the future was bright. "Anna, quiet down," Ethan said, his voice softening as he tried to placate her. "You know, nobody will believe you if you start talking about a system controlling the world." Anna's sobs stopped abruptly. The light went out of her eyes. It was a look of utter despair, like an abandoned kitten hurt and alone with no one to turn to. I floated beside her, wanting to stroke her hair, but my hand passed right through her. My poor Anna. Even as a ghost, my heart ached for her. That evening, Ava took Anna home, with Ethan in tow. The driver was silent. Anna, exhausted from crying, had fallen asleep in Ava's arms. Ethan tried to start a conversation several times, but Ava's face was a frozen mask. She just stared ahead, biting her lip. When the car stopped, they went inside. The nanny took Anna and carried her to her bedroom. Ava and Ethan were left alone in the living room. Ethan was the first to break the silence. Ava, I never thought this would happen. The plot was over. How could this happen? Ava didn't answer. She just stared down at her hands. Ethan put on a concerned voice. Ava, this has hit Anna really hard. She's convinced we're the ones who killed James. But the plot was finished, right? Maybe it was just an accident. Ava closed her eyes. Right before the divorce, she said softly. James zoned out for a second. Anna and I both suspected the system was back. But we ignored it and went ahead with our plan. Ethan froze. Is Anna okay? If it were a punishment from the system, Anna would have been hurt too. Ava covered her face with her hands, her voice trembling. I don't know why. I didn't want to be controlled by the system anymore. I wanted to make my own choice just once. And that one time, he died. Seeing her state, Ethan moved closer, reaching out to hold her. Don't blame yourself. Maybe it really was just a coincidence. Ava took 2 steps back, a bitter smile on her face as tears streamed down her cheeks. A coincidence? How? Ethan, I watched the security footage from the wedding. It's perfectly clear. James never left his seat. He never went near the ring. Ethan's lips thinned into a line. I was stunned, too. I never would have guessed Ava would go back and check the security tapes. But what did she mean? Make my own choice. When I proposed to her, I had never mentioned the system. I always believed she married me because she had actually fallen in love with me. But from the way she was talking now, it sounded like all her choices had been forced. That loving me was the compulsion, and not loving me was her true feeling. I was completely lost. System, can you check Ava's affection rating for me? The system responded quickly. Per regulations, I cannot disclose. Ahem. In summary, the data shows that on a scale of 100, you once achieved an affection rating of 99 with this character. I laughed. You gotta be kidding me. Look at her. Does that look like a 99 to you? Are you malfunctioning again? The system was silent for a long time before it finally replied. This is why a human host is required. Human emotions are too complex for even the most advanced system to process. I let out a long breath, and then I understood. I finally understood Ava's conflict. She was so proud, yet she had fallen for a man who was bound to her by the system, a man who had no choice but to be with her. On one hand, there was the man she genuinely wanted to love. On the other, her pride was screaming that she could never accept a love born of obligation and sacrifice. She wanted to love me, but her instincts fought against it. That constant push and pull was tearing her apart. It was late. Ethan kept insisting that they were married now, that he should stay the night. But Ava had the driver take him home. She sat alone downstairs for a long time before finally heading upstairs to Anna's room. It was in that room, just 3 days ago, that we'd had that terrible fight. And now I was dead. She walked over to the bed and found it empty. When she asked the nanny, she learned that Anna refused to sleep in her own room anymore. She believed that because she had said bad things about me in there, it was her fault I was gone. She insists on sleeping in Mr. James's room, the nanny whispered. Ava turned and went to my room. She'd hardly ever set foot in it before. It was dark and the lights were off. The room was dim, but every object seemed to stand out with perfect clarity. The glass of water on the nightstand, the slightly open drawer, the watch left on the windowsill. Everything was just as I had left it. How could he have been so cruel? How could he just leave? Ava felt a surge of rage. She wanted to smash everything in the room, to vent the panic and confusion churning inside her. But in the end, she just walked to the bed, looked down at the sleeping Anna, and gently kissed her cheek before tucking the blankets around her. It wasn't the child's fault. She had brought all of this on herself. The only thing she couldn't get past was the hurdle in her own heart. She didn't want to admit it, but she had to face the truth. She loved James. She was the one who had been afraid. She was terrified that as soon as James was free from the system's control, he would leave her without a second thought. So she decided to be the one to leave first, just to see what he would do. But she never imagined he would agree to the divorce so easily, without any protest. A surge of anger washed over her, and in a fit of pique, she publicly announced her remarriage. And then he had the audacity to show up at her wedding. She was furious. So she took Ethan's hand, let him put his arm around her, and even initiated a kiss, declaring to everyone that Ethan was her husband and she would love him forever. Ava knew James was watching her. He was always watching, always enduring. And so, fueled by her pride, she put on a more and more convincing performance, until she saw the color drain from his face and his eyes lose their focus. In that instant, she knew she had gone too far. She had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. But her pride wouldn't let her back down. She knew that if James had really wanted to ruin the wedding, he could have done it easily. But he hadn't. It was she who couldn't stand being up on that altar a moment longer. So she found an excuse to step away. All she had wanted was to force his hand. She wanted him to stop the wedding, to walk up there in front of everyone and take her away, to tell her how much he loved her. But she had miscalculated. She had pushed him too far. And now, because of her, he was really dead. All her tests, all her little cruelties had led them to this, an ending with no way back. Ava was sick with regret. A regret she couldn't voice, that no one would listen to, that no one would forgive. She stood at the large floor-to-ceiling window in my room, looking out. From that window, you could see the front door, the main gate, the garden, and the fish pond. I had placed a lounge chair there. Ava sank into it. It was comfortable, but it brought her no comfort. The view wasn't anything special, and the chair wasn't even facing the garden or the pond. It was pointed directly at the front gate. What's so interesting about the gate? She wondered, rocking back and forth. What was there to see? It was where I sat every day, waiting for her and Anna to come home. It was late. I watched as Anna insisted on sleeping in my bed, and as Ava paced my room before finally curling up in my lounge chair and drifting off to sleep. To be honest, I didn't get it. They never came in this room before. Why now, after I was dead? Even the system couldn't figure out. It made a series of sputtering, short-circuiting noises as it tried to analyze their behavior. All right, that's enough, I sighed. Get a rest. Is the exit portal ready? Almost, the system replied. Once you leave, there is no return. I grunted in acknowledgement. Will this world be deleted? The system whirred to life again. Given the plot collapse, deletion of this world is the standard protocol. However, this system must first diagnose the error, report the bug, and request an upgrade. During this period, the world will be temporarily preserved. I floated over to Ava, watching her sleeping face. After 8 years, I realized I had never truly understood her at all. I had failed completely. I still had no idea what that 99% love the system had detected was supposed to look like. I sighed and drifted over to Anna. She was sleeping fitfully, her brow furrowed and her lips pressed into a thin line, as if caught in a bad dream. I couldn't touch her, couldn't smooth the worry from her brow. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "You're just a little girl, Anna. You must be so scared. I don't blame you. You'll always be my little girl." The system went quiet. I drifted around the room, looking from Ava to Anna, my thoughts wandering. A few hours later, the system's voice returned. Exit portal is now open. I took one last look around the familiar room. Let's go. 3 years later. I rarely thought about that fictional world anymore. My days were simple. Work, home, playing with my son, joking around with my wife. It was a simple life like most people's, but it was real and happy. And because I'd given that buggy old system a 5-star rating, it still occasionally tossed a few reward points my way. I could cash in the points for good luck in the real world, winning a small lottery, getting a promotion, a perfect checkup at the doctor. Little things like that. One afternoon, the system suddenly appeared. James, the investigation is complete. The fictional world is scheduled for deletion. I had just woken up from a nap and mumbled a reply. I hesitated, then asked, "Are they okay?" "Per regulations, I am unable to disclose." Ahem. In fact, Ava no longer sees Ethan. Her days consist of work, spending time with Anna, and burning letters at your grave. I nearly choked. The system continued. Anna grieved for a long time. It took her a full year to accept your death and resume a normal life. Like Ava, she refuses to see Ethan. She has never visited your grave. She believes she killed you and is afraid to face you. I let out a soft sigh. And Ethan, he harassed Ava repeatedly, showing up at her office and banging on her door at night. The last time, he was drunk and ambushed her on her way home. He assaulted her. Ava called the police. He now has a criminal record, lost his job, and is a complete wreck. I said nothing. After a long pause, the system spoke again. Ava had many things she wanted to tell you. She wrote them in letters, which she burns at your grave. Would you like to read them? They detail your past together and her feelings for you. I refused without a second thought. The system seemed confused. Are you not curious? Why she treated you that way? Why she conspired with Ethan to deceive both the system and you? Are you not curious what that 99% love actually was? I just shook my head. You. The mechanical voice sounded genuinely perplexed. Human emotion is anomalous. This system's analysis concluded that Ava did not love you. The data now suggests she did. This system predicted you would desire closure. Definitive answer. You do not. This is anomalous. I shrugged. What's so strange about it? Then why do you reject the answer? I gathered my thoughts. For a system, the most important thing is to define, to categorize, to determine if something is true or false. But people aren't rational creatures. We're driven by emotion. I don't know what Ava was thinking back then, or how she loved the idea of James in her head. But for all those years, as the James who was actually by her side, all I ever felt was pain and coldness. So, that James already has his answer. It wasn't love. At least, not the kind of love he needed. And since it wasn't what he needed, he was free to leave. You don't need to validate something you don't want. It's that simple, isn't it? The system made a soft whirring sound, as if it were processing a difficult equation. A few seconds later, it spoke. Love is love. Non-love is non-love. This system still does not comprehend. I laughed. First of all, love is supposed to make you happy. And second, even if I did look, and even if it proved that Ava really did love that version of James, he was still miserable. So let me ask you, system, does a love like that fit your definition of the word? The system went silent again. I flatly refused the system's offer to see the letters. It asked me several more times, determined to study my reaction, but I refused each time. The system finally gave up, though it still seemed to find my refusal a fascinating data point. As compensation, it kept showering me with points, making my real life more and more comfortable, all the better to observe me, I suppose. Another year passed. The system's upgrade was finally approved. After it was complete, it seemed to have an epiphany. The James from Ava's world was dead. The James in the real world was alive and well. The burdens of that fictional world should not be forced upon him. Upon this realization, the system seemed to experience a profound sense of guilt. It dumped a massive amount of points on me, so many that I started to worry I'd live to be 200 and end up in a lab somewhere. Many years later, the system was busy with other hosts and other stories, and I rarely heard from it. I was perfectly happy with the quiet. After all, life is long. Long enough that it's worth taking the time to love the one you're living. The point of the story is this. You don't need to obsess over whether a feeling is real or not. How you feel is the only answer that matters. A relationship that causes you pain has lost its purpose, no matter the reasons behind it. True victory isn't winning the game. It's having the courage to walk away and write your own story.